So we got the movie The Iron Claw now in theaters. I was able to check it out over the weekend. So what did I think about this movie? So really one of the reasons why I wanted to check out this movie was going off of the story and going off of the trailers. This looked like it had the potential to be a top 10 movie of the year. And sometimes you never know. A movie could just easily sneak in at the end of the year and just be a top 10 movie of the year. So I definitely want to check this movie out and see if it actually could become that. So I am a wrestling fan. I've been pretty much a lifelong wrestling fan. And as a wrestling fan, and any other wrestling fans out there, you probably know of or heard of the Von Erich family. Now, the Von Erich family is a family of wrestlers kind of before my time. I didn't really get to watch them or anything. So, a little before my time, they were really more prominent during the 80s and 90s. But one of the main things that people know them for not only being great wrestlers, but for their tragic family story. So, knowing of the family and how tragic their family story is, I knew just going in that this was just going to be one of those movies that's probably going to be an emotional ride. Basically, just have you just feeling for this family. You're going to see this tragic story go on in this movie. So, in this movie, you really do get the family dynamic and you see what their family is going through. You see the brotherly love and rivalry between them. You have their dad who is kind of basically pushing them into this wrestling business and in a way is living out his dreams through his children. Zac Efron, who plays Kevin Von Erich in the movie, is basically more or less our point of view character. We kind of see the things that happen throughout the movie, kind of more in the majority through his eyes and how he is seeing it. The timeline of this movie is basically taking place during the 80s and some of the 90s, and basically you're seeing how Kevin is the oldest brother, and he's the one that's in wrestling whenever the movie starts out, and then you start adding each brother starts coming into the wrestling business one by one, and you're seeing that timeline going on. And throughout the movie, you do not only see some of the struggling moments that they have, but there is also some happy family moments that they have. This family that they have with each other, and just really among the brothers themselves, how they have so much love for each other. They are just so close with each other, looking out for each other. And with this movie, it is definitely much a wrestling fan type of movie. Wrestling fan is going to basically see the different things going on with the wrestling business and be able to, recognize and know stuff about the whole wrestling aspect of this movie. But honestly, I think it also caters to non-wrestling fans to where they could be able to appreciate this movie and see the different things going on in this movie and be able to still feel that emotion, still feel that tragedy within the family of this, with telling the story of this family. And with the way that this movie feels more like an art type film instead of like a popcorn blockbuster, you really get that sense of what they were trying to do with this movie. The way that this movie is basically like emotionally haunting throughout, and the way you're just seeing the way this family is with each other, and the way that you're seeing this family tragedy unfold throughout the movie. It just makes you feel for the family, and you have a sense of relatability with this family. And the way that you get invested into this family, invested into the story, what this movie is trying to tell. Honestly, I didn't really feel the runtime of this movie. It didn't feel like it was a long movie. It didn't feel like it was dragging or slow in parts. Like, I honestly could have watched more, and if they gave us a little bit more story, I would have been okay with that if it was even longer. But this movie really clocks in at about 2 hours and 10 minutes, 2 hours, 15 minutes at most. But like I was saying, I didn't really feel the runtime of this movie. It didn't feel dragging or anything like that. You really get invested into this family, invested into the story that this movie was trying to tell. And after watching this movie, I actually found out somebody was telling me about it. And for those of y'all that may be familiar with it, probably more wrestling fans, there is a series called Dark Side of the Ring, and it basically tells each episode is basically a dark story or a dark tragedy that has happened in the wrestling world, and basically tells stories about that. Someone actually told me there was a Von Erich episode, and I actually checked that out, and it was very, very interesting the way that they're able to talk to the talked to the surviving brother of Kevin Von Erich, and he was able to tell his story basically in this episode and give more details on the tragedy. So I do recommend checking out those episodes, Dark Side of the Ring. You can find it. But upon watching that episode and getting more details about things that were happening, and of course this happens a lot with biopic movies. Of course they're not going to be able to include every single detail, or they're going to have to adjust some stuff for movies, because at the end of the day this is a movie, so they are going to leave out some details and adjust for a movie's sake. It turns out there was actually a younger brother that they left out of the movie. And, upon hearing that they left out a younger brother from the movie, I did a little bit of reading and some article searching to see why that is. And it turns out that the director did originally want to include the younger brother, but it just felt like it was too much for this movie to include the younger brother. Too much of a tragedy to include that, and they just thought it was too much considering how much of the tragedy this story was with the other brothers. So they decided to not include the younger brother. So that's one major key detail that they left out of this movie. I think another key detail that they maybe should have added or could have added, and it would have added a little something to this movie, and it would have probably, like, imagining that scene going on in the movie, it probably would have emotionally wrecked people. It turns out, while talking in the episode of that Dark Side of the Ring episode, found out that their dad actually pulled out a gun on Kevin himself, and he basically was saying, like, you're not brave enough to join your brothers in death and all that. And it honestly just sounds like it could have been a very emotionally wrecking scene if that actually was in the movie. But overall, I gotta say, I really did enjoy this movie. I really did like what this movie was doing. Although it was tragic with this movie, I was emotionally invested with this movie, emotionally invested with the story and the family in the movie. It was definitely emotionally haunting at times, but also, a few happy moments here and there, but you could just get a sense of what this family went through and just feel to see this tragedy that happened to this family and being able to see them and just get emotionally invested with this story and this family. Wrestling fans will enjoy this movie, or at least appreciate it for the wrestling aspect and the things they got right in this movie. And I think non-wrestling fans could be able to enjoy this movie. It does cater a lot to non-wrestling fans just in general, to the whole family dynamics and family story that's going on. Honestly, I enjoyed this movie a lot. I think it's amazing and incredible. Definitely a tragic story and a tragedy and emotionally haunting throughout, but nonetheless, it's still an incredible, amazing movie and story. And in my opinion, my personal opinion, I think this is definitely a top 10 of the year film.